needs to be almost a completely louvered.
Yeah, I mean, it's evident in these elevational studies too. You know, of that language. Because when I look back at Toronto here, I see a full wall that deals with the possibility of light and movement. And then shading also. You know, I mean, this is deeply inset, right? So there are these moves that you make as far as the actual formal logic of the building, like the overhang. And how do you transform that louver? How do you transform that to work with the overhang? So they're not these kind of separate entities. They have an intrinsic kind of relationship to each other. But then I think tie back to the program. So I agree.
Yeah, well, look at this. Just look at that. You really don't have enough of what Watergate says. Like that, even these are kind of a, and you've got to remember this is like 1948. You know, essentially sort of a real lightweight sort of structure, and you've got these, you know, these overhangs. You've got a whole row of windows, you know, that make a wall, and there are other examples. You know, throughout Advantage, that period in which entire walls disappeared. You've got things from floor to ceiling. You know, they just kind of fold up and disappear. So the inside and outside is virtually gone, the distinction between them. See that can happen?
Well, I want to say at the end here that when you were working over here at this scale in the midterm, we really couldn't have the conversation we're having now. And it's really good that you tackled it at this larger scale, because it really does reveal the areas of the project that are really addressing some of the original precedent down here. Because back at this scale, it's more of a kind of an urban design conversation, which you know, kind of sorted out, and you needed to move to the larger scale. So I think that allows the conversation to be about that.
But I think it's entirely kind of the, as you might say, the trajectory, you know, of the project is moving in the right direction. I think every element has kind of pieces of the intentions. And I think that needs to be clarified, but I still feel that there needs to be more inventiveness in how you consider some of these very primary elements that define the school in its place and its didactic character. Very nice. I mean, it's really suggesting an awful lot.
Oh yeah, of course.
I was really impressed with the coherence of your presentation. It's a really well-organized set of information so that somebody can sort of follow along and see what you're doing. And I think these little diagrams down here, particularly the ventilation diagram, which, you know, we tend to sort of say we put in windows and it ventilates, and that isn't necessarily true. And I'm not sure all these things work, but at least you're sitting there trying to figure out how actually does the ventilation work in the building. And I think so often when we do these sustainable projects, we wind up with a bunch of symbolic moves, like the Gersten building with the overhangs that don't actually shade the window. So I appreciate your thinking about that and trying to solve those things maybe at a more sophisticated level of how they really work. One of the things that I really like about your building that you haven't spent a lot of time talking about is these vertical cracks that go up through the building, these vertical spaces, which to me talk about the ventilation, you know, allowing the air to move up and air to move through the building, and then have these slots where they can move into those slots. And in this climate where you have, you know, really intense sun and those little spaces which are shady places, a little sunlight comes down and filters down, but they're shady places as well, and yet they create light, are really very nice, and you know, they're sort of stuck all around. You see them in the sections better maybe than, and there's slots that you carved in where you have some of those things happening. I really like those, and you might think carefully about how those really work, particularly when you look at this ventilation model. The fact that you've got all these vertical things in it which allow you to ventilate in and up and through, you know, creating those kind of opportunities. Maybe you want to look at that more carefully and see how that works for you. But on the whole, I was just really impressed with how well you organized all your information.
Yeah, I wanted to, the light walls were actually a major part of the design to allow more enclosed interaction as well as outside interaction with outside pathways.
But I think they should probably be integrated into this diagram of the ventilation, because that's what makes that ventilation work. You can only move air so far across workplace, unless you have huge wind, you know, blowing. But by having these pieces we cut through the building, you've shortened up the floor plates so that you have the potential for ventilation to really work. And the slot, you know, where the air can rise, the warm air can rise, will actually help induce that ventilation, I think, to some extent.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.